Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord, and welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we're going to be talking about 5 whole cards today, so sit back and enjoy. We've got the initial SSR for Madoka, the support SSR for Juri, a new event SR for Mei, as well as 2 event rerun cards with Natsuha and Rinzai. Starting things off with Madoka. Madoka quickly follows up Toru to give us our second Nocchill SSR unit. And much like Toru, Madoka introduces a new mechanic in the form of her currently unique dodge. After appealing, Madoka has a relatively okay odds at avoiding damage, intentionally synergizing with Toru's SSR. Time will tell if her dodge ends up being particularly strong, and I have a reason to suspect that a future limited Madoka will favor higher dodge rates to further play off Toru's game plan, but that's just speculation. Overall, she's a solid SSR unit and important if you plan on building Nocchill as they are. Her roles are another questionable center, maybe. She's very similar to Toru in this aspect. She's also a buffer, and she's a dodge tank. Her initial skill is a Vocal 3.0 appeal that applies a 40% dodge chance for 2 turns. This then links into a Vocal 1.5 times appeal that only requires Koito. At max, this is a Visual 4.5 appeal with a 40% 2-turn dodge, and links into a Visual 2.0 that requires Toru and Hinata. Her 1-star passive is a Vocal Visual 25% up if the turn count is 4 or later, 20% chance to activate twice. Her 2-star upgrades to a Vocal Visual 45% up if the turn count is 5 or less, 20% chance to activate twice. Her 3-star uncap is a combination Vocal Visual plus 100, and her 4-star uncap is a Visual 150. Her memory appeal when maxed is a Visual 100% buff, which lasts until you are attacked, and links into a Visual 2.5 appeal that requires all of Nocchill. We've had a few members of the Discord test out Madoka's dodge ability to see how it properly functions, and what we think we've come up with is that at the beginning of each turn that the buff is active, it will do a check, in this case that 40 versus 60. If the 40% works in your favor, then all attacks for the turn will not hit you if they were meant to. You'll just simply see no damage. Otherwise, all attacks that were planned to hit you will. It doesn't seem to be a middle ground case where you might dodge 2 attacks and then get hit by 1. It seems it's an all or nothing deal. And again, the sample size isn't particularly big, but that might be important towards whether or not you feel this dodge chance is good for her. For recommended supports, the Madoka stream from Takayama P gave us a good idea of what to expect with Madoka for ideal supports. Much like Toru, Attention Down is the name of the game. While we don't know for certain how Attention Down interacts with Madoka's dodge buff, allowing less hits as you reach ideal half-health scenario plays into the main Nocchill strategy thus far. So any means to lower your mental, which we might see more Yuika cards pop up to work with Nocchill, otherwise play off of most of the Antika SSRs, especially the limiteds, as they work with Attention Down. Overall, Madoka, again, for a center, we don't really know. Like Toru, we have no idea just how impactful Madoka's type of memory appeal will be. It's the same thing as Toru's, but spun as a visual attribute, so play around with it if you have a better visual setup in mind for Madoka. As a unit, very similar deal, B+ to A-. The idea of finally having a dodge tank introduces a very different type of play for certain teams, and I'm all for it. She earns about the same grade as Toru because I think the added utility of a whole other means to avoid damage might be cool to play around with. I'd keep an eye on this card as we look towards the future. Next we have our Gacha SSR, Juri. Remember the somewhat recent Dance Rinzai we talked about in the past? This is the same card, but visual instead. This isn't a bad thing, mind you, it mostly feels like a safe choice. That being said, this Juri is very competent for visual teams, and much like Rinzai made Dance True Ending easier, Juri will make Visual True Ending easier. She's good for building Fest units too. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost, as well as Stamina support, and her unique mastery is Talk Mastery Visual, which reaches plus 16 at level 75. It is also worth noting that her TFD idea is visual, making this the first SSR visual Juri support that you can truly work with now. Her 1-star passive is a visual 30% up if you're in the visual position, 20% chance to activate once. At 2-star, this becomes a visual 50% up if your team includes Juri, 20% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a visual 100, and her 4-star appeal is a visual 3.5 that applies a 20% visual buff for 3 turns. Her support appeal does scale up per 5 levels, which increases a visual buff that starts at 5% at level 60 all the way up to 25% at level 80. So Juri gets an S. Everything I said about Rinze's last SSR still stands when it comes to talking about Juri. She's an incredibly useful support for pure visual setups, and will assuredly help in building strong visual idols with her appreciated combination of support skills and buffing prowess. Rest in peace to Hero in the Part Kaho, by the way, as this card has completely power crept that more or less out of existence. But you might still find use for it. Maybe we'll see that Kaho buffed in the near future, who knows. She's a top tier pick for permanent SSR supports at this point in time. Next we have our event SR, Mei. Mei's newest SR is an event unit, and she's surprisingly a very versatile card despite her shortcomings. Naturally, like most event units, Mei doesn't boast any particularly awe-inspiring buffs or damage output, but she makes up for this by having a useful assortment of buffing options for Stray Light. Being able to combo into 2 active buffs for each appealing stat that lasts 7 turns greatly helps in setting up either Asahi SSRs for max damage situations, while also assisting Fuyuko's SSR in keeping the team buffed up after a decisive round. She doesn't hit as hard as initial SR Mei, but compensates greatly in the buff stacking department. Her roles are buffer and all-rounder, in a vague sort of way. Her initial skill is a Dance 2.0 appeal that applies a 10% dance buff for 7 turns, and links into a vocal visual 10% up for 7 turns. At max, this becomes a visual 2.5 that applies a 10% visual buff for 7 turns, and links into a vocal dance 10% up for 7 turns. Her 1-star passive is a vocal 12% buff if your mental is 75% or higher, 40% chance to activate once, and her 2-star passive is a visual 21% up if the turn count is 3 or less, 40% chance to activate once. Her 3-star is a visual 50 uncap, and at max, her memory appeal is a visual 1.5 that links into a vocal dance visual 10% buff for 10 turns. For recommended supports, find a balance between dance and visual to make the most of both of her appeals, as you will most likely end up using both of them. Opting for cards like Chiyoko or Rinze will add further damage, especially in Rinze's case, since you'll most likely be using these two on your main setup. As for recommended teammates, not a whole lot changes here compared to how Asahi 2's team would realistically look nowadays. 4 buffing units compounding into 1 explosive turn from Asahi. What more could you really ask for? You could choose to do an alternative variant where maybe Fuyuko is the center if you do not have Asahi 2, and then maybe include some more damage-centric units in order to capitalize on that as opposed to one of the other buffers. But again, the ideas are open, and you're welcome to experiment and let us know in the comments what your style of team would be. Overall, Mei as a center gets a C+. It's not an incredibly powerful memory appeal nowadays, but it gets the job done enough if you need a budget Rainbow Stray Light memory appeal. I'd focus on having either Fuyuko 1 or Asahi 2 as your center if the options are available for you. As a unit, she gets probably about a B. Probably the best Mei SR we have currently. It doesn't make her incredibly ridiculous as an individual unit, but supplying buffs for one of the hungriest teams in the games for buffs is certainly appreciated greatly. If you lack Mei SSR options, this Mei will do nicely. Moving into the rerun cards, we first start with the SSR Natsuha. A rerun of one of the earliest event SSRs in the game, Natsuha has finally returned. It's been almost 2 years, really. A pure vocal mastery unit with access to Trouble Guard. Nowadays, she isn't incredibly strong at all, but her event standard scaling appeal along with semi-okay vocal mastery should help out if your vocal team is just starting. Leveling that said mastery is pretty awful though. Her masteries are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost, as well as Trouble Guard, and her unique is Vocal Mastery Vocal, which reaches +6 at level 80. Yeah, it's a bit expensive. Her TFD idea is Vocal, which may be useful to you. Natsuha's first passive is a Vocal 18% up if you're in the Vocal position, has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a Dance 25% and Visual 15% up if you are in 5th place. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her uncap is a Vocal 50, and her 4-star appeal is a Vocal 2.5 that applies a 3-turn dance buff of 35%. Her support appeal scales from a 2.5 at level 60 to a 3.0 vocal appeal at level 80. Overall, this Natsuha is about a C-. Natsuha is all over the place with this card. Vocal focus, but dance and visual buffs along with a realistically weak mastery skill unless you really want to level her all the way to 80. Her gold passive requiring 5th place is among one of the harder to activate passives in the game, as it requires you to be already losing in an even more specific way. I'd get this card for completion's sake, but this isn't necessarily a Natsuha card that I would be looking for if I wanted to build for vocal or dance. Lastly, we have Rinze. Rinzai, also among the oldest of the event SRs, is a card that somehow aged better than Natsuha from the same event. Only having 2 less dance mastery than the most recent event Kaho, with access to Trouble Guard, can act as an okay filler unit for dance teams. She's still not an incredible card to write home about, but she still gets her job done for cheap. Her masteries are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost, and Trouble Guard, and her unique mastery is Dance Mastery Dance, which caps out at +5 at level 40, meaning it's very easy to max out this skill in particular. Her TFD idea is mental. Her 1-star passive is a dance 12% up if you're in the dance position, 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a vocal visual 17% up along with an attention 30% up if the turn count is 3 or less, 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a dance +50, and her 4-star appeal is a dance 2.0 that applies a 3-turn visual buff of 25%. She's somewhere between C+ and B-. Rinzai is okay. Another budget option for dance teams, and the mental idea for TFD will have its uses as well. If you already have the SSR Dance Rinzai, or the SR Dance Rinzai from the gacha, then you won't find too much use for this card outside of the mental idea, but there are better options for that as well. This is another card to add for your collection, but not necessarily one that I'd be using for team building. And that's going to do it for the video today. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. If you like what you saw, feel free to leave a like and share the video around to let people know what we're doing. If there's anything you'd like to see other than shiny reviews, leave us a comment as well. Next time, we have no idea what the next banner might be, or if we'll have any topics that we might want to cover before the next shiny review. So, till then, let's look forward to what's in the future. I've been Cho, thanks for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.